West Ham got bullied and we've shot ourselves in the foot, quite frankly. Why have we shot ourselves in the foot? Well, because the whole point of this exercise was to win the game. I guess I'll lose the game, but ideally win the game. David Moyes has already announced that he was going to give the players a few days off. Why? Well, because our next game was due to be on the 21st of January. It gives the players a couple of weeks off, gives David Moyes time to give them a few days off and spend a week with them on the training grounds. And we've shot ourselves in the foot now because the replay against Bristol City will held the week starting the 15th. Highly likely, I don't know, but highly likely the game is going to be the 17th or something like that. So, we're going to have a really tough game. And not much rest ahead of a game against Sheffield United. It's pretty crappy planning in that respect. So that's the shooting ourselves in the foot part. I think in terms of the bullied part, well, we were bullied by Bristol City. Not all game, to be fair, and I don't mind the first bit. Actually, in many respects, I quite miss games like that. And I certainly don't blame Bristol City for the way that they played. And there was an element of them sort of systematically fouling us, which the net result ended up in, I'm not going to say 3 injuries, because I think Lucas Paqueta may well have broken down anyway, because he went in a little bit. He's just coming back off an injury. Certainly it injured Mavropanos and possibly Jarrod Bowen at the end. But they didn't bully us all game, and that's fine. That's up to us to respond and stand up for ourselves. And I think in many respects, a lot of our team didn't. We'll get onto all of that in just a bit. In the second half, Bristol City didn't bully us. I think they'd almost softened us up, and then they attacked, and they attacked, and they attacked, and they attacked some more. That was more old. That was the old West Ham there, I've got to say, with us just sitting back. And I wouldn't blame Bristol City actually if they looked at us and thought, that's a two-man team. West Ham, that's a two-man team. And once one of them was gone in Lucas Paqueta, who lasted sort of 8 minutes. I mean, if you read the stats, it will say that he was substituted on 13 minutes or something like that. He lasted 8 minutes. They'll probably look at it and think, well, okay, once Lucas Paqueta was off, we can probably handle Jarrod Bowen. Just about. I still thought Bowen was the standout player over the game for us by far. The best player that West Ham had on the day. And, I mean, it's a little bit of a worry. Now, obviously, I think a lot of us reading between the lines. Do you know what? I'm going to forget about the whole one-man, two-man team thing. We'll deal with that another time. The Paqueta thing, he created a goal within 4 minutes. Beautiful chipped pass with his right foot, fun enough. His weaker foot went all the way over the top. Jarrod Bowen collected it really beautifully. Such a class quality player now, Bowen. I do believe he's sort of up there with the best, actually. Rounded the keeper, slotted it home really, really nicely. Beautiful. Really great goal. Mavropanos got in. Paqueta got injured. Mavropanos came on. So Mavropanos had the whole game pretty much. It was from then we got bullied, and I think the first person to get really properly bullied was Vladimir Soufal. And I felt like maybe they'd done their homework, actually. Maybe they'd done their homework. Because I think if you can bully the bully, so to speak, he's the attritional one in our team, isn't he, Soufal? If you can get him, then you might get somewhere. And it worked. It actually completely put him off his game. He sort of went into himself, didn't want to retaliate for a bit, and then I felt afterwards got so focused on the retaliation that he sort of... There was one point he could have played a 1-2 to progress down the right, and he just seemed more intent on sort of getting revenge, you know. So, I mean, that wasn't too good, in all honesty. We'll get to the Mavropanos bit in just a bit. There was a weird situation, basically. We were chasing everything. We were getting bullied. It was quite clear for me in the team that we needed an athlete. At the point where we no longer had any creativity, it's pointless me talking about the creativity because once our best players go, we don't have any. It's as simple as that, really. At that point, you need someone that's going to be able to contest it. You need an athlete, someone either really strong that's going to impose themselves physically or really fast. And we had neither. As much as Bowen really tried, and with his quality, we were actually missing those real sort of athletic elements, I felt, to our play, certainly. I was a bit disappointed, actually, in Thomas Souček. He's a big old lump. And I think there's a difference between being brave, and he is brave. He'll put his head in front of a boot. He'll get stitched up, he'll do all that, and he'll carry on playing. But I think there's a difference between being brave and taking the hits, and then actually being the bully yourself. And I think at 6'4", whatever he is, there was a point where they were just all over us, and I would have liked to have seen him gone in and actually take it to them. Too many of our players I felt shrunk at that time. One who didn't was actually Edson Alvarez, and I was really pleased. Eventually he got a card. He didn't actually. There was this guy Williams, I think it was his name. I think Williams, in the end, he'd been systematically fouling. He'd just got a card. I think in the end Alvarez just had enough, and he thought, right, I'm going to come and deal with this, and he went basically studied this guy down the Achilles heels, down the Achilles tendon. Which was pretty much what was happening to us, So at least I was pleased that one person, went and sort of gave a little back. Eventually, he got a card for stamping on, so he probably took it too far then. And I thought, he was he might on another day have got a red card for that. But I was surprised that the guy that did the foul on Mavropanos did not get a card. He did a Harry Kane on him. I've seen Harry Kane so many times. Just when someone's in the air, he'll back into them, knock them. They're up like that, and knock them off balance. And I'm pretty sure that Mavropanos, it'll be a collarbone or a shoulder or something like that. Wouldn't be surprised if he's not back particularly quickly. It left us with a central defence of Zuma and Ogbonna, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the central defence from hell. I've praised both players recently, both Zuma and Ogbonna, when they've been with separate partners. Together, it's not something you want to see. It's quite ironic, actually, because at the time, initially, it did us a little bit of a favour because Ogbonna knows all the dark arts and he likes a war. So actually, at that initial time, he was the right person to have on because he'll fight and he's a scrapper. He's got that sort of warrior spirit about him. And it helped us then, not so much for the goal that they scored, which was early on in the second half. And it was a weird one, really. It was a Divine Mabama who... He did win a header. He got the header, but he sort of headed it back into our area and into sort of midfield. And I felt... I'd need to watch it again, but I felt Ward-Prowse sort of let it bounce. I was disappointed he didn't impose himself on the game more, actually. Sort of Ward-Prowse let the ball bounce. And then he was just... Ogbonna was caught in no man's land. Didn't know what to do. He was too high off the pitch. A guy ran off the back of him. And then you just had this situation where you had Ogbonna and Zuma trying to chase a fast player back. Well, it's never going to happen. Actually, I thought the forwards finished it really well below Fabianski, who, let's be fair, was given too much to do in that game. And it was 1-1, and it really took that to shake us into urgency, and it did. It really did. We had a certain level of urgency, and we sort of tried to attack, and we huffed and we puffed, but we didn't blow the house down. Ultimately, David Moyes, I was going to say, tried to make a triple substitution. It's painful to watch. He decided he was going to make did the 10-minute thing. He decided he was going to make the substitution on 64 minutes, made it on 74 minutes. Triple substitution. It was Danny Ings, it was Maxwell Cornet, and it was Johnson. Johnson on for Soufal. Oh, my word. Cornet was on for Edson Alvarez, and Danny Ings was on for Fornals. Fornals wasn't bad in the first half. I should probably say that it was one of his better games. I felt disappeared in the second half, which is why he was substituted. But I mean, we were not good for the start of that second half. It was a half of two halves. It was a half of two quarters. There you go. That's the one. That's the term you're after. There was a point where David Moyes was getting frustrated when we couldn't keep the ball, and it was really, really weird because at the time we couldn't keep the ball. It was Thomas Souček and it was James Ward-Prowse in central midfield. I mean, it's painful watching them trying to pass the ball and create sort of triangles and all the rest of it or whatever. Well, I need one more to create a triangle, but you get what I mean. To do, pass and move and give and go. It is painful to watch. I mean, so I don't know why he was frustrated. It was almost like David Moyes didn't understand why it was happening. Like he was expecting them to control the passing game, that pair in midfield. It's like expecting Sir Richard Attenborough to start a freestyle rap. It just ain't going to happen. Do you know what I mean? And they were in the middle there with no real cohesion. And the substitutions were... Well, Johnson looked all right, but I think by that point, sort of anyone was going to... Johnson's been all right recently, actually. I thought anyone was going to bear it in mind what's happened to Soufal. Soufal had gone by this point. Danny Ings, he missed from 3 yards. It was a sort of... It was a bit scrappy. There was, I think, a corner came over. It was a bit of pinball in there, and Mubama had a shot saved by the keeper. I don't think the keeper knew anything about it. It all happened very close to the goal, and then it was a bad miss from Danny Ings. The ball fell to Danny Ings. A striker of his experience and someone who, would consider himself to be a finisher and a fox in the box, and probably someone I complain doesn't get the level of service at West Ham because I don't feel he gets chances in the box. This was a chance for Danny Ings. It is a good one, and it was. When I say 3 yards, I mean if I'm wrong, it will only be because it's 4 yards. I've not got it totally wrong here. He was very close to the goal, and he hit that wide. Actually, his build-up play was all right, Danny Ings, but. Again, we were huffing and puffing at that point. We just didn't have the overall quality to get through. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I think had Paqueta not got injured at the start, I think we would have cruised through the game. As I say, we scored after 4 minutes. I think when they were able to concentrate all their attentions on Jarrod Bowen, they were probably okay then. If they were going to have to keep half an eye elsewhere, then it was going to be a problem for them. But they didn't really have to because ultimately no one else posed a threat to their goal. I'm sorry to say. Jarrod Bowen, the combination of Jarrod Bowen and Lucas Paqueta were the threat to the goal. Take Paqueta away, there wasn't really one. I mean, listen, don't get me wrong, there's some corners, there's some headers over, there's a missed chance by Danny Ings, there was a block shot here or there, but ultimately nothing that would have overly troubled them. You're probably going to want to know how Mavropanos played. Again, I've got a level of sympathy for him. There was points during the first half where the ball was lumped up to him from the centre backs. What's he going to do? The guy, it was number 26. I don't know the guy's name, but the right-sided of their central defenders was faster and stronger than Mavropanos, and that was difficult for him. However, I thought at the end he looked a lot better, but there's no. What can I say? He looked a lot better when there was another forward on there and there were 2 wingers on. Of course, he's going to look better. He looked better when he had the support, but ultimately not very good at all. As I say, we've got this replay in the cup, which probably nobody wanted. And this is the thing: David Moyes would have hated that, but to get that replay. But it was David Moyes wanted to win this game. The starting lineup told you that David Moyes wanted to win the game. Just look at it, irrespective of whether you thought. It was Moyes'. You thought it was our best lineup. That's what David Moyes thinks is his best lineup. That of who was available to him, that was his best lineup, which tells you the starting lineup showed you he wanted to win the game. Unfortunately, the substitutions and everything else that happened thereafter probably showed you that he didn't know how to win the game.